My name is Doug Hodo, and I am the moderator, leader, guide, whatever that is for this next session. And we appreciate you being here. We're going to talk about the potential goal for marketable skills. And our panelists have come here today to help us do that. I hope that you will listen attentively to who they are and what they're about. And without giving you all of it, I'll give you a brief overview of the goal that we're seeking. And I don't say this facetiously, but the goal would almost bring about a perfect person. And that is that it wants people to think critically, communicate clearly, solve complex problems, demonstrate ethical judgment and integrity, develop intercultural skills, and a capacity for continued new learning. Now, if that doesn't get everything covered, I don't know where it is. So if you have some suggestions that we would add to this, I'm on the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Special Committee, and we'll add it to our list. So these are it. By 2030, all graduates from Texas public institutions of higher education will have completed programs with identifiable marketable skills. Why will we have a goal for marketable skills? These are various organizations that have put together that talk about the concerns about recent college skills. Why aren't companies getting the graduates with the skills they need? Employers are looking for soft skills on college graduate resumes. And then last but not least, the very top one up there, employers are more interested in critical training and problem solving than a college major. And what they want, as you and I recognize, is they want these people to come to them prepared to meet the needs of the market. What is a marketable skill? Students exit from any degree program with a variety of skills. The marketable skills are those valued by employers that can be applied in a variety of work settings, including interpersonal, cognitive, and applied skill areas. These skills can be either primary or complementary to a major and are acquired by students through curriculum delivery. What will the goal accomplish? Give the people the capacity of the student to articulate and demonstrate marketable skills, the institution to increase awareness of and opportunities for marketable skills, and the employer or employment will keep pace with the dynamic labor market. So these are the skills that we're looking for and striving to bring together. So we'll ask our two speakers today to do a little bit of that. The first one with us this morning is Mark Schneider, and Mark's bio was too complete and comprehensive for me to give you all of it, but he's the vice president and the Institute Fellow at the American Institute for Research. He's done a lot of things. He's an author. He's written lots of journal articles as well as other things. He speaks, I'm sure, across the country in various places. And so would you welcome Mark Schneider.
My mission in life right now, so I've gone on many crusades in my life, and my current crusade right now is to try to get students to understand and policymakers to measure more accurately what happens to students after they graduate. So for many years and we've heard this before, we talked about the access agenda, getting students in, and then starting actually under Margaret Spellings, who I had the pleasure of working with, and then especially under the Obama administration, there was a completion agenda, and then slowly we began to realize that completion also was not enough. What happens is that we need to make sure that students are completing, but that they're completing with a purpose, and that is that they're getting jobs, that they're earning wages, and that they're doing well in the labor market. So I've been working with about half a dozen states to try to take the labor market data, the wage data, and link and trace it back to where they graduated from, what their programs of study were, and to try to document in sometimes excruciating detail the payoff for different kinds of programs across the state. So Texas, I've been doing a lot of work in Texas. It's a great state to work in. As you've seen many times, you know, it's not, what was the comment? It's not like as Texas goes, the rest of the nation goes. It's like you are the nation. So this is a really interesting state. You have great data and really wonderful, wonderful partners. I have wonderful partners working here. So what I'm talking about is skills, right? So one of the things that matters is that skills can come from many places. We've heard that just previously about from Cale about how skills can come in many places. But the fact of the matter is that at the current time, skills and higher education, post-secondary education, are often intimately linked. And when we talk about state investments, we talk about higher education as probably the premier and certainly the most expensive human capital investment that states make. So ultimately, there's revolutions coming along that may fundamentally change the delivery system for higher education, and we're going to learn more about the innovative economy and new delivery systems in a minute. But the fact of the matter is that right now, the numbers of students that go into higher education, into post-secondary education, community colleges, certificates, universities, is the premier way in which we try to develop human capital. And again, this may be changing, but right now we have millions upon millions of students in post-secondary higher education, and this is our most expensive human capital development approach. So skills matter, right? So why do they matter? So the work that I do is mostly with regard to wages. So the question is, what kinds of skills, what kind of investments do students make, the taxpayers make, that their families make, and in what kind of skills, and what's the payoff in terms of wages? So higher education does all kinds of things for people, but fundamentally what we care about, and I'm saying students and their families care about, is wages. Are they launched? Can they make money? Could they get in the middle class? Or are they going to end up as boomerang kids living back in your basement, you know, after they graduate, and you're like, no, I thought the purpose of you going to college was not to come back, you know? And all of a sudden, like, your daughter or your son comes back and they say, oh, you remember, you know, that bedroom I used to have and you turned it into your study? Well, guess what? I want it back. And anyway, so we want to make sure that students do well in terms of wages, because, you know, in all seriousness, neither of my daughters ever came back, and I paid them not to, by the way, but anyway, you know, we really do want our kids to succeed, and wages really matters. About 80% of students say that wages, good jobs, are the primary reason that they go to college, and probably all their parents say that. Underemployment is another issue. There was a comment earlier about someone with a degree in English who was waiting tables or driving a taxi. I can't remember whichever horror story that was. And we want to make sure that that students are not underemployed. I mean, if you spend all these years and all this money getting a degree, you don't want to be working in Starbucks, right? So one of my jokes is that a successful philosophy major has 2 jobs in 2 different Starbucks, right? And that's how they make enough money to be in the middle class. We you know, we got to be careful about that one. And finally, again, the issue of launching an adult life is really what matters. We want our kids to be successful. They have to make the transition. And as you all know, the transition is incredibly long now, right? You know, so one time kids 18, 19, 20, bye, you know, now 28, 30. I have a daughter that's 42, and I still write checks, you know. It's sort of like, you know, when are you getting launched? You know, you have 2 kids, you should be launched, and she, oh, but daddy, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we want to make sure that they launch, you know, that they all launch adult lives. So one of the things actually that I want to talk about is the importance of 2-year technical degrees. And this is one of the kind of fundamental issues. And, you know, I mean, so the earlier comment about community colleges, you know, this is their moment. Well, the fact of the matter is, it is their moment, and for a really good reason, because part of their mission, the career and technical education mission, really does, in fact, pay off. So not everybody needs a bachelor's degree. Right? The bachelor's degree in the United States is the most commonly granted post-secondary credential in the United States. But the fact of the matter is that it's growing more slowly than associate degrees, and way more slowly than the granting of certificates. So certificates, if you add certificates, both 1 and 2 year certificates and associate degrees, as many of those sub-baccalaureate credentials are granted in the United States now, just about the same as bachelor's degrees. So this is, and they're growing much more rapidly. So these are the kinds of credentials that could actually matter, because not everyone needs a bachelor's degree. Even though that's the kind of degree that most people think about when we talk about higher education, the fact of the matter is that it's not everybody needs it. Everybody has the time, the energy, or the inclination to do that, and that short-term skills, career-oriented technical degrees can put students squarely in the middle class. Okay, that is one of the most fundamental lessons that of all the states that I've worked in and looked at these data for several years now. This is a fundamentally important point, and maybe the most important point in my whole presentation. So career-oriented associate degrees can have a great ROI, a return on investment. I'm sorry, I should have cut this in half, but I'll just go over quickly what it says. So there's 6 states on here, and these are the first year earnings of graduates in 6 different states, classified according to the degrees that they've earned. So these are so you could look at bachelor's degrees, associate degree, and the different kinds of associate degrees that different states grant. So in every state but Arkansas, the average wage 1 year after graduation for associate degree holders is higher than the wages of bachelor degree graduates. And in states like Texas, where you divide the associate degrees into technical associate degrees as compared to academic-oriented ones, the technical-oriented degrees, the graduates with technical-oriented degrees end up way ahead of the transfer associate degrees or the bachelor's associate degrees. Now, this is 1 year. This is 1 year after graduation. So, this was important work to get out into the world. And right now we're going back and working with Texas to get 5 and 10 year out. And I'm going to show you some data from Tennessee, just to remind you that Texas is not the only state in the world. But the fact of the matter is that the patterns I'm going to show you in Tennessee are exactly the same that we have in Texas. But so 1 year. This is 1 year after graduation. 5 and 10 years and 20 years after graduation, the bachelor's degree, in fact, pays off more than the associate degrees on average. But a technical degree from a 2-year institution will, in many cases, out-earn, even in the long term, 5 and 10 years later, the bachelor's degree, and it could put people solidly in the middle class. Okay, so again, this is the data. These are from Tennessee. So Tennessee, because it's a great state, and they have the drive to 55. You have you need a catchier title than just 60, right? So surpass 60. I don't know. You need a marketer to do this. But the drive to 50, their goal is 55%. Yours is 60%. But so these data are exactly the same in the state of Texas. So if you look here, these are the wage growth for popular associate degrees in the state of Tennessee. And if you're red, you're below the statewide median for associates. So if you could look and you could see, for example, that red, these are programs that 5 years later have not gotten up, have gotten above the median. Very few programs start below the median and go above the median. So this is one of these. You start high, you end high. You start low, you end low. Is one of the fundamental issues that we find in these data. If you look a couple of points at the end of the first year earnings, the median associate is higher than the median bachelor's degree by about $3,000, and 5 years later they're about equal. So again, even 5 years later, a 2-year associate degrees actually pay off as much as a bachelor's degree. Again, 40 years from now, that's going to change, but the fact of the matter is that even 5 years later, this works. The other thing is that in the state of Tennessee, the median family income is $43,000, so 5 years after graduation, the individual with this degree is making $42,000, and that's pretty much solidly in the middle class. If you look down at the bottom, you can see some of the things that pay off with higher wages. Electrical engineering technologies and technicians, 5 years after graduation, $61,000. Nursing the second, $54,000. The fact of the matter is that the rule of thumb for evaluating the value of associate degrees, technical associate degrees, is 1, if you know how to fix things, you're going to do okay, and if you know how to fix people, you're also going to do okay. So, technology, healthcare. Those are the kinds of degrees: fix things, fix people. You're going to do okay. Here's some data for the most popular bachelor's degree in the state of Texas. And Texas has wonderful data. We could track wages out to 10 years after graduation. So you could see, again, mostly red. And essentially, if you start low, like psychology, you're going to end low. Criminal justice and corrections, start low, end low. Health and physical education, start low, end low. There are 3 examples where it's like start low, end low is violated. So biology, you start low, and actually 10 years later, you're one of the highest paid graduates on average in the state, and that's because so many people with bio degrees become doctors. And it takes that long before they start making money. Bench biologists, if there's such a thing, actually don't do all that well. The marketing goes from below average at $30,000 year 1 to high $78,000. And multi-interdisciplinary studies starts at above average and falls behind because this is the pathway into teaching for most students in Texas. All right, let me talk faster. So underemployment. Okay, this is a major issue. This comes from payscale.com. The issue here is, do students report feeling underemployed? And you can look at the areas on the left are the areas where the most underemployed majors live, if you will. General studies, sociology, English language and literature, graphic design, liberal arts, education, psychology, almost all liberal arts. On the right-hand side, the least underemployed people, engineering. So so I don't hate the liberal arts, but we have a problem in the liberal arts. Okay. Aspiring adults adrift. This is the work of Aram and Rosica. This was a follow-up to their work on academically adrift that showed that students didn't learn anything while they were in school. And here they follow students into the labor market to find out what happened to students. So they use CLA scores. You're all familiar with that. It's a collegiate learning assessment as a reflection of critical thinking, analytic reasoning, and problem solving, written communications. And students with these skills were more likely to be employed and have launched lives. So in fact, universities, to the extent to which they actually impart these values, contribute to students learning and students launching. But the fact of the matter is, from the first book, not enough universities do that. Not enough universities contribute to the development of those skills that are fundamental to launching. And the other problem is that students who didn't have these skills and were having problems in the job market still believe that they had gotten a good education. So we can't necessarily rely on students to tell you that this was a good education because, they may have had parties, they may have gone to these big giant bonfires on A&M campus and all that kind of stuff. They may have had a really great time, but unfortunately they didn't learn anything and they're not making any money. So there's a disagreement. This is fundamental. So I used to be a faculty member. I went to work for the government for 4 years, and when my term of office was over, I was working at Stony Brook University, and they expected me to come back, and I said, I can't come back. I don't want to be a faculty member anymore. You're the enemy, and you have to change. And they said, but we pay you a lot of money, indoor work, no heavy lifting. You work 28 weeks a year. And I said, yeah, that's it, right? And so I went on my crusade instead. So there's a disagreement over the role of college education. Students want skills that employers will pay for. And the faculty want 80% strong critical thinking, exposure to new ideas, and not necessarily teaching the critical skills that are in demand for the market. So what are the critical skills? So there's going to be a giant fight coming down the pike. It's starting already. What critical skills mean? Okay? So the word critical and skills put together, so what is that? So it turns out this is from a survey of employers from the president and CEO of Chegg. And these are the skills, these are the fundamental skills that employers say that they want their students to have when they start work, okay? So these are not rocket science. Word processing, spreadsheet software, data and analytics, database queries, manipulation, personal information management, presentation design, pushing a button on a presentation thing. So then there's a fundamental question about whether or not faculty have the right skills. So this is really a fundamental problem here. So when I ran a department for 18 years in a research university, so would I hire someone that said, you know, one of my major skills is teaching students how to do word processing and presentation skills? No. I wanted people who had really deep analytic, critical thinking skills that nobody could understand, right? And you know, so I ended up, when I retired from Stony Brook, I had all this bling, metal, stripes, you know, all this kind of stuff hanging off me. And, you know, I mean, nobody read my stuff. You know, I had like 5 people that cared about what I wrote. And I had, you know, NSF awards and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, so when I went back to Stony Brook to say goodbye to all my students and the faculty, they said, give a, you know, little speech, a goodbye speech to the graduate students. So I did that. And my first opening line was, I said, I taught 20 years in public policy in this school, right? Every one of my students should sue me for malpractice. Not one thing I taught in all those 20 years had anything to do with the way in which public policy was made in the world that I had just come out of. And they said, you're joking. I said, no, I'm really serious. I mean, because the skills in academia are not the skills that students need to prosper in the job market. And that's a fundamental issue that has to be addressed. This is why community colleges, in some ways, are our hope in terms of career and technical education. Universities have a different function, but part of the function should be teaching people how to do work. Okay, so the bottom line for me is that when we talk about skills, it really isn't rocket science. No matter what major, philosophy, English, French, political science, my field, there are skills that students need to have that are valued in the labor market that every graduate should have in their toolkit. And some of them are, again, fundamental in terms of presentation skills and organization and you know, database management, finding something, you know, find something in this world that, you know, that relates to an argument. These include fundamental presentation skills, fundamental database skills, and these kinds of skills should be built into every program, in every major in the universities. The bottom line, students probably need to spend more time with that guy, you all recognize him, Bill Gates, and less with, does anybody recognize that one? Marcel Proust. So anyway, more time with Bill Gates, less time parsing Proust. Thank you.
You know, as a retired college president, I kind of resented a couple of those remarks. Well, I thank the Lord. I had a lot of good help that kept me between the ditches out there. But nevertheless, let me say to you, we have with us this morning Brooks Morgan. Brooks is coming to fill in for a colleague of his who got trapped somewhere else in the world and couldn't come, so you will bear with Brooks this morning. He is responsible for higher education investments at Learn Capital, which is a new thing for me, widely regarded as the preeminent early-stage education-focused venture capital. And so he's come this morning, and we really appreciate you being here, Brooks. You're up.
Yes. All right. I want to, I guess, start off by apologizing because I think I'm probably going to offend people here. But I thank you for thank you for having me, and I'm excited to start off with this. If your grads are having a tough time finding gainful employment right now, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse. What we call the innovation economy is something that we're driving towards very, very fast, and that's going to be changing quite a bit. So what are innovators? And this lines up very well with Mark's great presentation, by the way. Very, very engineering focused. Innovators are people that don't work. Instead, they create systems that do the work faster, better, and cheaper than your graduates with law speakers. The engineers right now, the innovators right now, and what we're seeing today, are engineers. But there are a whole bunch more professions that are also going to fall within the innovation economy. The next one that we're starting to see right now is user experience designers. So these are the people that make software usable. These are the people that make it so that you like to use your computer. Next is UI designers. They're the people that make this stuff pretty and nice to use. Then we have growth marketers. They're the people that replace the salesman. And we're already starting to see some pretty amazing things come out of growth marketers, actually. Yesterday, and I think what this survey was kind of designed to capture was, what is it that we need for, it's kind of like a baseline, that is table stakes for our workers. And yesterday, 70% of, and this is kind of, these are really made up numbers, but I don't have his statistics, but I didn't when I was creating this presentation, but this is kind of a general view of how we see this. We see, yesterday 70% of the workforce was workers, 30% is management, right? Unfortunately, you guys decided to not retire, and you aren't allowing people to move up. And maybe that's because you still have to write checks to your kids. I'm not sure. Those positions aren't vacant, so there isn't really anywhere for people to move up. And then, but companies, the way the companies have decided to adapt, and the way the companies have decided to become more profitable, these employees have decided to become more valuable to their organizations is by building skill sets, building deep vertical skill sets. There we go. By building deep vertical skill sets that allow them to do their job much better. And that's kind of led us towards, I guess, down the beginning of this road towards the innovation economy. Thank you. I'm kind of short. What we start to see is that engineers are starting to replace workers, obviously, right? They go in, they build processes, they build systems. It makes it cheaper and easier to run a company, more efficient. The margins are bigger. And obviously they do that in search of more dollars. So there are then going to be less jobs, specifically less jobs for workers that don't have these skills. The wonderful survey that you guys put together to determine what it is that people need in 15 years, I think is very inadequate. You're right that like that 20% of workers, that matches up pretty perfectly. But the rest of the people that are going to be getting jobs and are going to be displacing all of the workers, they need significantly more than what was outlined. I'll give you an example, and I don't necessarily think that I actually need to do this. Most of the people in this room are probably smarter than I am. But as a CEO of a company that makes billboards, I want to make my business more efficient by replacing people who process order forms with an automated solution. I'm going to hire a software developer, and it's going to take her 1 year to create that system. And it'll do the work of 3 entry-level workers. It cost me 2x the first year, but after that, it saves me $100,000 a year. So I asked my hiring manager to go post a job at UT. And the hiring manager says, sorry boss, there's a shortage of software engineers graduating from UT. Google got all of them by offering $100,000 a year and free foot massages. So I don't blame them for going there. So if I can't find an engineer through the normal channels, I'm going to have to look elsewhere. And when there is demand, the market is going to fill it. And this is what I do. I invest in these companies. So skills training companies like Dev Bootcamp, which we actually just sold for quite a bit of money. Dev Bootcamp and General Assembly are both very similar. You go in, you work there for 12 weeks. They teach you how to code, and it costs you $11,000. Our placement rate after those 12 weeks is 90% at $100,000 a year. We've put 15,000 students through the program in the past 3 years. So it's kind of hard to compete with that. I know, I'm sorry. We are now at 16 campuses. Company's doing extremely well, and I venture to guess that we'll probably be graduating 30,000 students, a year from now. So one aspect of this is the training. But then the other aspect is proving that people actually know something. Now, in the past, it was your accreditation model. In the future, it's demonstrating these skill sets, and that's kind of what we're here talking about today. Now, we need to demonstrate. I guess there have been places that have been developed by the private market that allow you to demonstrate your skills. The largest of which started in engineering as well, and that's GitHub. GitHub is now, 5 years old and valued at over $1 billion. And GitHub is basically a company, or basically a place where you can go and put all of your code. And when you put all of your code out there, it shows everyone exactly what you know. And so it's now the largest job market as well for engineers. So if I want to actually not go to General Assembly, not go to Carnegie Mellon, not go to Stanford, go just figure out how to program on my own, and then go submit code on GitHub, people are going to come knocking on my door offering me $100,000. I think it's a lot easier to do once you go through one of these programs, but a degree isn't necessary. The same thing is starting to happen with UI design right now. General Assembly, our company that we invested in, they are doing a really great job offering programs in UI design and UX design. UX design and growth marketing don't really have an accreditation system yet, but UI design does. It's called Dribble. You can check it out. There's lots of pretty stuff online. So kind of in closing, what I want to say is that demonstrated proficiency is significantly more important than a degree. Now, with that said, engineers need managers too, and those are engineers. And so if you have a degree plus demonstrated proficiency, that's what we would like to consider an all-star employee. You asked me how to demonstrate the well-rounded skill set of an educated person, but your degree already does that, I think. I think you guys do a really good job of that already. You've been doing it for quite some time. But it's table stakes. And in 2030, 15 years from now, things are going to look a lot different. And you need to start making sure that students have marketable innovation economy skills. I don't think I'm in the place to tell you exactly how to do that, but what I can do is say that it definitely is going to require more practical application in the classroom. And students will need to have a body of work that demonstrates proficiency in a skill that the market will demand tomorrow. I think that's it. Thank you.
Well, if these two didn't wake you up and give you some start to understand what those of us who are working on this special thing, David, are doing, we've got a real task in front of us. And we're going to need your support locally as well as statewide, because not everybody is going to see, hear, and understand that our economy is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And I apologize to you for the personal story, but I have a son who's one of those. And I was sharing with them this morning that 6 years ago, he was doing some work for Microsoft. And Microsoft, it was an accounting package that they used primarily in the United States. But they were beginning to use it in Europe. And they asked him if he could help them out. And I'll use my hand as demonstration. This is the accounting package. Only problem was that there was a little sliver over here in the middle that says, how does a credit card match up in Europe with this accounting package? And it didn't, because they were using the chip 6 years ago in Europe, and we're now seeing our people scrambling in this country to do that. But here's a kid who he has an undergraduate degree in English. He also has a law degree and an MBA, and he's a programmer. So the world is changing, folks, and the coordinating board, as well as employers and the rest of us, we're going to have to adapt to see where we go with all of this. again, having been a college professor as well as a college president, I know that you can't make faculty do what you want them to do. And I are one of those in my past life. But we're going to have to adapt. And the coordinating board as well as the legislature is going to have to stop and step back and ask themselves, are we really training people for the world of work, or are we just training them to be academicians? So.